Hello, welcome to the stream, everybody. Tonight we are doing some medieval fuckery in the Holy Roman Empire. We're playing as Duke Ernst of Austria. He's not a Habsburg, he's a Babenberg. And honestly, I really like that motto. That's a good one. And you may see her in the background. I am looking after my girlfriend's dog while she's on vacation with her mother. So you might see Gypsy walking around in the background here. You might hear her too. So, how are we going to get started? We should get our heir married. Now, see, this game does a decent job of portraying the sheer clusterfuck that was the Holy Roman Empire. But even this doesn't get close to how much of a mess it was come the 15th century, which you see in EU4. This is when the HRE was still fairly cohesive. Yes, they are. I believe they are a dynasty in Switzerland. Yep. Yeah, that's... I think they have the old Habsburg castle preserved somewhere in Switzerland. You can go visit it. So, I'm looking for a smart... whenever I play this game, I go, hey, welcome to the stream. If you hear panting in the background, it's not me. It is my girlfriend's dog who I'm taking care of this weekend. Into this week. Her name's Gypsy, and she's keeping me company. Um, so you might see her in the background. I know, I can't believe I got to this point. But thank you all, and I think it is. I remember watching a really good documentary on the Habsburgs where they talked about the fact that the family started in Switzerland. Alright, I think I'm just going to have to settle. Granted, borders were a little iffy back then, so that might have been the case. I saw someone with the intelligent trait, and I want her. I gotcha. See, I think the Habsburgs had been kicked out of their Swiss holdings by then. The family had gotten ousted and wound up going to... There she is. Alright, let's go with you. I am going to need to cultivate an alliance here at some point. But we have the intrigue tree, which I don't usually mess around with all that much. Let's go with skullduggery. That's a fun word to say. No, their original holdings are somewhere around here. Yeah, there they are. Count Werner. This is modern day Switzerland. So yeah, they did start in Switzerland. The castle you're thinking of was up here, thereabouts, and they got that later in history. Alright, who... I don't want this guy to get in charge, because I want some of his land. But good relationship with the Czechs could be useful. And I do believe all my vassals like me. I have a daughter. I can get an alliance for her, definitely. I'll look after her. And I have a second son. I'll look after him too. I know it's somewhere around there. Yeah, like this would be Alsace-Lorraine, but you also have parts of Germany. It's somewhere right around here. I can't remember exactly where. I have actually been to Metz. It's a beautiful town. Yeah, I don't think they controlled it. Yeah, Sundgau. I don't think they controlled it at this point. That was later. At this point, the Habsburgs are kind of a nobody dynasty. Like no, they weren't all that well known or influential until the like late medieval period when they come to control Austria. So the other thing is the Count of Steiermark controls a county that should be ours. So what am I gonna have my count my group? I hear you, Gypsy. Good girl. Yeah, like the Habsburgs were interesting because they really did not. They kind of came out of nowhere, and through clever marriage, made themselves into one of the most powerful dynasties in Europe. But historically speaking, their land holdings were not much to write home about. At least until they got control of Austria, or like the Komnenoi, another Byzantine dynasty who I believe originated in Trebizond. Do I want her to get fickle? Let's go with fickle. Yeah, for the Habsburgs, early in their history, they controlled a single castle in a. Yeah, they were one of those other came from nowhere dynasties. That's one of the things that I really like about medieval history is you can have like powerhouse families rising out of nothing rather quickly. I don't want drunkard. Drunkard's a bad trait. Let's see if I can get an alliance for my daughter. Hmm. Needs to be someone relatively close to me. Duke of Angria. He would be useful. Nice. Yes, and that's the thing very few people understand about Spanish history is that Spain as a unified country is a very recent development, honestly. Only in the last half millennium really. And I say recent, it's very old, but up until the Iberian wedding and the union of Castile and Aragon, Spain was a patchwork of various kingdoms, speaking various languages, and in the case of Navarra, was being the Basque kingdom. And the Basques are a fascinating ethnic group, being that they're one of the only non Indo European language speaking people in Europe. Basque is very, very old as a language, and it predates the arrival of the Indo Europeans in Europe, which is also a very, very old event. Um, but they were always kind of an odd duck tucked between. They did, and some dynasties from there got to be very powerful. But they were just kind of an odd duck in European politics, sandwiched between France and Spain, but very difficult to conquer because they were just sitting up there in the mountains. Chased by shadows. Think someone is following you. Let's get more vigilant. That never hurts. One thing I wish they would incorporate into CK3 is the later, yeah, the Navarrans slash Basques turn up at a lot of weird points in European history, and they did often, given their position sandwiched between the French and the Spanish, they often needed to find allies in people who were not overly fond of the French or Spanish. i.e., the Burgundians or the Portuguese. So that's often who they married into, just to kind of make the French and Spanish think twice before marching an army into their territory. Alright, let's build... Alright, well, we have manor houses. That's good. But let's upgrade walls and towers. And might as well also upgrade Hohenau. Oh, I can't yet. Need more money. Who are you friends with? Alright, I think they did, and actually that's the interesting thing is each of the Castile, Leon, and Navarra each spent a fair amount of time as the dominant power in the Iberian Peninsula. It just happened to be Castile that united them all in the 15th century and kept it together. But modern Spain is a united king. It's the union of several smaller Spanish crowns. Like it'll show you on the de jure kingdoms. These all came from the breakup of the kingdom of Asturias, which was established in the 8th century and was kind of how the Visigoths transitioned into Spaniards, because Spain is a lot of Spain is based on the ancient Visigothic kingdom that was set up in Iberia after the fall of the Roman Empire. And I believe House Jimena is in control of all of these kingdoms at the start of the game. Yep, and Navarre too. Yep, is one big old family feud. Yeah, so all of this was Asturias, which was one of the last holdout kingdoms when the Muslims invaded. And it's sort of reaching back into myth, had a king called Pelagius, who was a real guy, and we know he fought in a battle whose name escapes me at the moment. But it basically stopped the Muslim invasion in its tracks and showed this mountainous little spit of land was way more trouble than it was worth for them to actually try to conquer. Looks good to me. And it was over that period of Asturias into the... Howdy, welcome to the stream. I'm just doing some medieval fuckery as Austria and talking about Spanish history. Yeah, so for a lot, and I mean a lot, of the history of several of the Germanic kingdoms in Europe, succession laws screwed them over. So you would have these great leaders who would unite kingdoms only to have them divided between several male heirs. Yeah, so that's if you want to know the reason why the HRE was such a shit show, it was succession laws. And France was the same way for a while, but they fixed that because France was kind of like the one Frankish kingdom that didn't fall apart completely, although it was heavily internally divided. But it was pretty common practice in Germanic kingdoms to... Everyone's going to war. To divide your land between all of your male heirs when you died. The thing that stopped it from... I am going to be trying to. But the thing that stopped the Frankish Empire from completely disintegrating after Charlemagne was the fact that Charlemagne only had one legitimate son by the end of his life. Yes, he is. Louis the Pious. He had a hunchbacked son who tried to depose him, but wound up getting thrown in a monastery for the rest of his life. which was a common way, sort of like how the Byzantines would blind people or castrate them. Throwing somebody in a monastery was a pretty commonplace way of getting rid of someone who's politically inconvenient. And that is exactly what Charlemagne did. And this was a poor move on my part. Yeah, I was not in the mood for that. I'm Oh well, Angry is falling apart. That's not good. I think this might be a lost cause, so I'm gonna dip out and try to build my manpower back up. Oh no, he won. Good for him. Well, yeah, there was that extra layer, but oh, that's horrible. But yeah, I know that blinding was a pretty common method of eliminating political rivals in Byzantium. No, so Charlemagne would often put his politically inconvenient children into monasteries just to get rid of them. The main one being uh, the Hunchback, who's, again, his name escapes me too. Frankish names are fucking wild. So, when Charlemagne dies, he only has one legitimate son, and that's Louis the Pious, who was competent. He wasn't like an awful king. He just wasn't his father. He would honestly have been better served in a monastery than um, in the court of Aachen. Like, he was a very religious man. He was very scholarly, but he was not cut from the same cloth as his dad, and because of that, Francia really started to suffer under his rule. And also, Charlemagne's dad is a his granddad Charles Martel is even cooler. But Pepin the Short is awesome. I've been thinking of doing an episode on, like, a short episode on Charlemagne, because he was one of the greatest giga chads of the medieval era. The dude had about four different wives throughout his life and a dozen kids that we know about. Yeah, Pepin the Short is a great epithet. But I mean, Charlemagne's name translates to Big Carl, which still makes me laugh. Alright, I need a new wife now. Can I get a decent alliance from any of these women? Ooh, I can get England. But are they close enough to actually help me? What is it in Greek? I'm actually not aware of what they called him in Byzantium. I know there was briefly a time when Charlemagne. Oh, that rolls off the tongue. I love that. Carlomagnos. But I believe I'm blanking on her name. But the Byzantine Empire was ruled by a woman at the time when Charlemagne was in power in Francia, and they briefly talked about marrying one another, which would, yeah, Empress Zoe, which would have united the two Roman empires at the time, which is an interesting alternate history scenario. I don't think they would have stayed together, um, given how Frankish succession laws worked. That probably would have been a huge mess to actually sort out. Not to mention that at that point, the Great Schism hadn't happened yet, but there was a growing divide between the Latin and Greek churches that was very obvious, even in the eighth and ninth centuries. They just didn't formally split until the 1080s, and that was the mutual excommunications are a wild fucking story. And yeah, you are correct. It probably Byzantium would have gone to somebody else. It would probably a local Byzantine would have taken the throne because they tended to rankle at the idea of these Germanic barbarians ruling over them, and Charlemagne's kingdom probably would have fallen apart like it did historically. Because again, Louis the Pious, not bad, just not his dad. That said, Charlemagne was a heavy metal motherfucking dude. Um, yeah, she was known as a pretty brutal lady, so that was entirely possible. Granted, Charlemagne was no slouch himself. When he attacked the Saxons, he slaughtered so many people at the town of Worms that it was claimed the river ran red with the blood of the slain for several days. Which, and that doesn't sound like goddamn metal lyrics. I don't know what to tell you. Let's see if we can ally ourselves with... There we go. Nice. Now, because I want to expand my domain, I'm going to get a personal claim. I already have a de jure claim, so... I mean, in a way, Charlemagne was the nickname. It was Charles the Great. Alright, get in here. We're fighting Steiermark. Also, Basil the Bulgar Slayer was fucking badass. How hardcore have you got to be to... My favorite story about him was when he... After defeating an army of Bulgars, what does he do? He blinds 9 out of every 10 men fully, and then leaves every 10th man with one eye to lead his buddies back home and send a fucking message. That is how you make a statement. Nobody's gonna forget you. You're the motherfucker who carved all our guys' eyes out. Alright. Slow down, wait for him to catch up. Alright, let's kill them all. Oh, that sucks. Come on, slow down and let me catch you. I need to kill people. Okay. These are the freaking whack-a-mole armies that I hate about this game. There we go. Oh yeah, no, it wasn't like the Bulgarians hadn't done a fair amount to piss off the Byzantines at that point. There we go. Expanded our domain, and we now have full control over de jure Austria. And a third castle, which... Yeah, well... That whole situation is interesting, but yeah, it's not like the... Granada looks like the victim in 1444, only if you don't consider the previous, pretty much millennia of slaughter that preceded the Spanish destroying the Emirate of Granada. If you don't consider that the Muslims invaded their homeland and subjugated their people for centuries. Yeah, the Granada's not the victim. They were just the last remnant of a group of people who had oppressed the Spaniards for millennia. So I don't have a whole lot of sympathy for them. I'm second in line to inherit the HRE apparently. And yeah, so there was I mean, sex slaves were one of the biggest exports from Muslim Iberia. Because having a Christian European sex slave was a huge status symbol in a lot of the Islamic world at the time. And actually, it was so popular that hmm, but he was it was so popular that several of the emirs of Spain, or of I shouldn't say Spain, of Andalusia, they looked European. They didn't look like Moors or Muslims or Arabs really. Hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, even worse than the Reconquista was the 30 Years' War. More people died in that one than did in the whole of the Reconquista, which took about 800 years from start to finish. I think something like 20 to 30% of the German population was killed during the 30 Years' War. The country was basically depopulated. Millions upon millions died in just 30 years. I think that was the deadliest conflict prior to the World Wars. I might be wrong. I'm going to look that up. Well, that's a nice little list to have. List of wars by death toll. Yeah, something like 4. It's estimated between 4 and 12 million people died during the 30 Years' War, which is absurd considering that the population of Europe wasn't all that large at the time. Saladin is an interesting figure. Yes, he is relatively tolerant as Muslim rulers went at the time, but he also had several personal documents where he talked about eradicating the Frankish race from the earth. So a lot of people like to read back and look at him as sort of a some kind of a hippy dippy super tolerant guy ahead of his time, but that really wasn't the case with him. He was just as zealous as well Richard the Lionheart. And actually they're an interesting pair because they almost develop this adversarial admiration for one another. Wait, am I in this war? Oh, it's my liege's war. Well, I'm not fighting in that one. Okay, I think. Alright, I can get more gold from the Pope. I like that feature. Now, I think I'm going to take this border province here. Nice. Get some of that sweet, sweet Pope money. Just build up the kingdom. What's my son looking like? He's not bad. He popped out a lot of kids, which is good. What did I want to do? Yes. Realm. Succession. Yes, I am probably going to try to do that. Problem is, I have too many sons. And the land that I have pulled together is going to fall apart as soon as I die. Okay. County of Vienna, County of Hanau, County of Amstetten, and the Duchy of Austria. Yes, I think I need a larger domain for right now before I can really start worrying about that. Just trying to expand Austria proper. Oh, I have the Duchy of Austria. I've got that. I'm gonna try to get Steiermark next, probably. And then, with these territories, I will be one of the most powerful men in the HRE. Let's make Vienna an economic. Oh, that's right. They don't get all of Salzburg. Sure. Yeah, no. That's right. They don't split up duchy land, do they? Nice. Alright. Let's take a look at my... Can I do anything interesting? Oh, there it is. Alright, let's see what the requirements are. Need primogeniture, illustrious, region of Austria. What does that mean? Okay, so I need Steiermark. And I need the HRE. Alright, I can do that. Maybe not in this lifetime, but... no, I think you need to be a part of the Empire to get elected. That said, that wasn't the case historically. It used to be that, theoretically, any male Christian could be elected as Kaiser of the HRE, and sometimes it did go to realms outside of Germany if the dukes did not like anybody. Also, you can do that, but you do need a claim. I'm going to try to do what Austria did historically and win the elections. Yeah, let's see if we can do the Austrian Empire. You know, the Austrian Empire, for as shitty as it was in being internally divided between so many ethnicities and linguistic groups, it did have pretty sexy borders, I will say. That said, the German Empire also had sexy fucking borders. Yeah, that's horrible to look at. I could do that. I'm gonna try. I'm trying to raise. I'm hoping that my grandson will turn out to be. Actually, I'm gonna let's focus him on stewardship. I know it'll be hindering to him, but stewardship is easily the most OP branch to go down. Just Styria. I just need Styria, and then I need primogeniture. But right now I need prestige, so let's see if I can do anything to boost that. Hmm. There we go. Let's call a hunt. I will try my... Well, I'm not actually playing as the Habsburgs. I'm playing as the von Babenberg dynasty. Alright, got some prestige. That was easy enough. Let's host a feast as well. Yeah, Salzburg got divided between Austria and Germany. It's kind of a weird-looking border. Let's also go on a pilgrimage. Let's go to the Vatican. Well, they're really... The thing of... Borders weren't as concrete as we like to think of them today. Borders were pretty fluid, all things considered, back in the day. And yeah, Paradox did a good job with EU4, but in order to make a map that could be playable with semi-historical borders from the 15th to the early 19th century, they did to make some concessions. There's no way to make borders that work for every time period that game is meant to be set in. Alright, I can assign a guardian. So, oh, I have a nice hat now. That's pretty rad. Look at that hat. There's a seashell on it. Beats the fuck out of a crown for damn sure. There we go. Alright, I think I have the money to go after this guy. Oh, I have a claim on the entire duchy. Let's do it. That is true. I have played Imperator Rome. I'm not particularly good at it, but the maps are very similar to the point where they're actually able to just overlay the, actually, is that the... No, it's not. But there is a mod that just gives you the, Imperator Rome map with the CK3 interface. Shit. Didn't move fast enough. But when you have a strong enough ally, it all works out. Yeah, I haven't played a huge amount of it. I'm still trying to figure out how the damn interface works. Oh wow, that mod has gotten big if they've incorporated China into it too. Yes, I've never played Vicky 3, but I am familiar with the Rebellion meme. There we go. Look at that. Look at us go. Okay, good. Yeah, I was supposed to say that would be incredible. That is some sexy borders right there. And then when this guy inevitably tries to rebel against me, I can use it to seize his land. Also true. Hmm. Oh, there we go. We have a faction. Why can I not imprison you? Let me hire some mercenaries. I think I'm gonna try to take Salzburg because I do have a claim on it. Alright, I'm gonna save money and hope my allies can bail me out of any wars. Oh, there she is. I heard the dog. She was right behind me. Good girl. Well, that was kind of a lot of the 19th century in Europe, was just non-stop rebellions and civil wars. Oh yeah, for full historical Austria I do. But just to form the Archduchy, I only need Carinthia, or Steiermark. At least according to what I saw. Yeah, so. No, get fucked. Alright, come help me. Alright, let's come kill these assholes. Yeah, you too, you're my ally as well. I don't know, but I love it. It just showed up on my character. Alright, there we go. Kill them all, let God sort them out. I guess I don't know, but I love it. I wish I had a hat that was that cool. Well, right now it's the Bohemians are proving to be my greatest ally right now. I will probably be trying to get Hungary as an ally. They seem to have stabilized a little bit. I haven't married in yet, but once my daughter marries the king, I will have... I betrothed her, but once my daughter marries him, I should have a more concrete relationship with the kings of Bohemia. Then I'll just keep it going until I see an opportunity to take it over. Let's ransom those guys. No, I do want some clean-looking borders, so... Ah, fuck. Hey there, welcome to the stream. And yeah, borders are just a word. Yeah, right now I'm just doing some medieval tomfoolery, trying to form the Archduchy of Austria as House von Babenberg. That said, fucked up maps are way more fun to look at than nice maps. Just drinking some bourbon and slaughtering my enemies. It's a perfect Saturday evening. That's got it. She is actually on vacation right now with her mother, and I am looking after her dog, who is sitting right behind me. Her name's Gypsy. She is the sweetest thing in the world. Maybe create Große Deutschland. Um, it was briefly proposed that Austria be the one to unite Germany. All right, I need more crown authority so I can revoke these titles. Yes, I am, because she has wanted to go on a vacation with her mom for a very long time, and I love her dog, so I was more than happy. Well, everyone thinks their dog is the sweetest, but Gypsy is a sweet little dog, and she has been keeping me company all day. If I can, I will. Right now, I'm just trying to create the Archduchy. Oh, they did. They are out in Tennessee right now having a grand old time. Oh, yeah. Um, Lady Renegade is a huge Dolly Parton fan. Alright, got some prestige. Need to. Alright, as soon as I get limited crown authority, I can start revoking titles. That is true. Austria Hungary, for as much as it's been memed, was a compromise. The Austrian Empire that preceded it was a much stronger political body. Austria Hungary was what happened when the empire started to disintegrate. Well, it's really the nationalism is what killed the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It couldn't survive the ethnic separatism that developed as a result of, well, the rise of nationalism. I love me some Hungarian food. Hungary has great fucking food. Um, that is true, and actually, the great irony there is that the Archduke Franz Ferdinand was one of the main advocates for increased rights to the ethnic minorities in the empire, and Gavrilo Princip killed him for it. He killed the man who was arguably his greatest friend in Vienna, or at least whose vision for the country most aligned with his own. Now, granted, Princip wouldn't have been happy unless Serbia had full independence, but Serbians having greater autonomy, that was something that was kind of on the table with Franz Ferdinand, but Serbian nationalism derailed all that and pretty much killed any hope of federalizing the empire. And actually, fun fact about one of the last scions of House von Habsburg was hmm I'll take that life experience. That is also true. Hungary was not all that friendly to the Slovaks in particular. And there were also some ethnic Germans living out in Transylvania, and not to mention the Romanians living out here too. Um, there are also Serbs down here. This map of Hungary, it looks very nice, but really, Hungarians occupied this central plain, and most of the rest of the country was Slovaks, Romanians, Germans, and Serbs. Actually, my boss was of a group of Slovaks who, her ancestry is a group of Slovaks that came here and, in all likelihood, fleeing the what the Hungarians were doing. Yeah, Hungary is one of those countries whose name really opens it up to very punny jokes. Actually, a lot of the Slavic population wound up settling in Baltimore. We had a huge number of Czechs and Slovaks come here in the 20th century. Before that, Baltimore was the main port of arrival for German immigrants. So actually, there's a lot of German names in Maryland, like a lot of burg suffixes, and then we have a Berlin, Maryland, and nearby we have a Vienna, Germany, or Vienna, Austria, or Vienna, Virginia. Sorry, um, but no, there is a Berlin, Germany. It's much smaller and less impressive than the actual Berlin, but it's just a trace of the group of Germans that came here in the 19th century. And then in the 20th, a lot of West Slavs came, the Czechs and the Slovaks in particular, to the point where there's lots of churches in Baltimore named like Saint Wenceslaus and other sort of stereotypically West Slavic names. Yeah, there's a few groups of people on Twitter who are like the most butthurt nationalists you will ever find. But honestly, whenever this COVID bullshit is over, I have had this trip planned in my head for a very long time. Also, that is fantastic. I will. I have wanted to visit all of these cities pretty much my entire life. I would do Vienna, Budapest, Prague, Krakow, and Gdansk. Also Warsaw, definitely. And actually, yeah, if you get off the East Coast, the largest ethnicity in a lot of Midwestern states is German. Most of the Irish and the Italians had a tendency to stay on the coast, but the Germans tended to go out into the Wild West, basically. Yeah, that's another one. There's a lot of German names that found their way into America. I understand that for me, as a Baltimorean and somebody whose family is of partial German descent, it's interesting to me that Germany was the main, or Baltimore was the main port of arrival for German immigrants throughout much of the 19th century. Granted, my German ancestors got here before that. True, but they also make some great cheese up there. Also, I didn't realize. Yes, they did. Largely Swedes, if I'm not mistaken. They also settled in Delaware. There was a brief period of time where Delaware was the Swedish colony. Because Sweden did try to establish a colonial empire. It didn't. It didn't. It didn't work. But they did try. Alright, I'll take Graz, thank you. Yeah, the city of Salzburg, but this whole duchy, this part of it basically is part of Germany. Yeah, but a lot of what is the Duchy of Salzburg in this game is part of modern Germany. Actually, when I was in Berlin, my tour guide was hilarious. He said that the greatest sin the Austrians ever committed was convincing the world, or yeah, was convincing the world that Beethoven was Austrian and Hitler was German. Because Hitler was actually Austrian. Granted, he was born in a borderland, but still Austrian nonetheless. He established his like personal base in the Bavarian Alps. It wasn't in Austria. I believe it was called the Eagle's Nest or something like that. Alright, got me some more money from the Pope. Gonna continue building up my territory. Oh, I'm gonna, trust me. Alright, got myself a good city there. I'll take that prestige, thank you very much. Who are we at war with? I'll finance the crusade. Oh, you're good. Yeah, no, he had a few like personal retreats slash bases, but the Eagle's Nest was in Bavaria. Up in the mountains, yeah, it was his sort of personal mountain retreat during the war. And before it, when he was just like prior to the war, he spent a lot of time there. Because the SS had a tendency to just confiscate castles and use them for their own purposes. Like Schloss Itter in Austria was a medieval castle, but during the war it was confiscated and used as a political prison. A lot of prominent French prisoners were held there, actually. Alright, gotta get control in Graz here. Need to get my crown authority up. But this is gonna be painful. Yes, I believe that is the one they used for Indiana Jones. I gotcha. Okay, sorry. I was confused. I was confused a bit there. It might be called the Bavarian. It could be in Austria, but I know it was in the Bavarian Alps. I've lasted a long time. How old am I? I am 60 years old. Alright, well, there we go. I died. And I need to declare war on my brother and take Steiermark. So be it. Alright, I'm Marshal, which is good. But I am fairly old. I don't think I can do that because the Habsburgs already exist. Alright, need some prestige. Let's call a hunt. That's not a bad option, honestly. There we go. Come on, I needed prestige, not to piss off one of my vassals. Actually, is my heir unmarried? Yes, he is. He's young, so... Got a good stewardship education on him, too. He'll be a good heir to me. There's a good girl. Good girl. Whenever you see myself taking my... Whenever you see me taking my hand off the, off screen, it's me petting the dog. Because she is just the sweetest little thing. Oh yeah, this was actually a gift from Lady Renegade. Belisarius World Tour with a list of all his famous battles and the years they happened. I have a colossal man crush on Flavius Belisarius. Alright, she's got a good trait, so let's try to breed that into our family. And we'll hire some mercenaries too. Yeah, the Salzburg province in EU4 is pretty weird. Yeah, we lost Hohenau. But the worst lost is Steiermark. Ah, it's the perfect opportunity too. He's weak right now. He just got out of a war. 320. I'll take the fame hit. I will take that fame hit. Belisarius was one of the most underrated generals of all time. Oh, that's right. I lost the hat because I died. Sherman was brutal but effective. I think his actions made Reconstruction more difficult because he basically cut a bloody swath through the South's most populous state. But you can't argue with the results he got. He completely crippled the Southern ability and will to fight. His march to the sea just ripped him to pieces. Because the thing, Georgia was to the Confederacy what like Pennsylvania was to the Union. It was there. It was an economic hub. It was where a lot of their manpower came from. And you got to consider the fact that Sherman did that with about 15,000 men. And also, Grant was way better than McClellan. He didn't throw men away if it could be avoided. Grant was a very brilliant general, and I would argue he's one of the greatest generals in American history. Sherman is too, but in a very different way. It's sort of like the difference between Patton and Eisenhower. If you wanted to win a war, you bring Eisenhower. If you want to win a battle, you bring Patton. Same kind of idea. If you wanted to win a war, you brought Grant. If you wanted to win a battle, you brought Sherman. And I need to get married. And also, yeah, the CSA on paper could not have won that war. Aside from the manpower issues, they had a fraction of the rail that the North did. They had a fraction of the industrial base. There was really no way the South could have won the war, especially after their armies were broken at Gettysburg. After Lee lost his momentum on the drive north, the war was entirely fought on the North's terms. The North picked the pace of the war, basically. Can I arrest you? Lee was a very capable general who was the main reason the South stood the chance that they did. But once his drive north was broken, it was pretty much all over for them. County of Pitton. Where is that? Okay, cool. Alright, got a civil war. The main reason Lee wound up... The funny thing is that the main reason Lee wound up siding with... siding with the Confederates over the Union is he was more loyal to the state of Virginia than he was to the country on the whole. And yeah, in a battle, like, in the heat of a battle, that was Lee's strength. He wasn't like a win-the-war general. He won battles very effectively, but... From a broader, more strategic standpoint, Grant was way more effective. I think he realized that was about their only chance, because there was no way in hell the South would have been able to actually compete with the North in terms of industrial production, among other things. He was very passive, too, which is another big criticism. Like, after his drive north failed, he didn't really do anything else. Fell back and defended, but that's not how you win a war. I will take those titles, please. Oh no, Lee was very capable at fighting, and he had little in the way of moral qualms about it, but... The thing about the Civil War is that everyone knew this was coming. No, Lee was effective in his own way. He just wasn't... I think he's a little overrated. I honestly think both sides wanted the war. I think both politicians in the North and the South knew that eventually things were going to have to get hashed out in a very brutal way. James Buchanan's do-nothing presidency basically guaranteed that the Civil War would happen. I still say without a doubt that Buchanan was the worst president in American history. Say what you will, I don't think Trump was as bad as Buchanan. Granted, we haven't seen the full historical fallout from that presidency, but oh, fair enough. Yeah, we've had some pretty. I don't really think any president since Reagan got even close to Buchanan. Buchanan is on another level of shitty politician. He just sat by while the country descended into civil war. He was remarkably ineffective. And yeah, no, I will definitely agree with you that Union generals were super underrated. They don't get the credit they deserve. No, trust me, everybody in America at the time knew that, well, honestly, that is a tough one. Wilson or Buchanan? I forgot about Wilson for a minute. I honestly think they're even. They're even with each other. They're equally shitty presidents. Yeah, Wilson was definitely much more of a disaster around the world, because without a doubt, he's the reason for World War One or World War Two. Yeah, so Wilson is the main reason, and Wilson and his influence over the Treaty of Versailles is the main reason we got World War Two, because the harsh terms put on Germany, and honestly, Germany was not to blame for World War One. No matter how you slice it, Germany was not responsible for that. All countries that participated in World War One pretty much bore equal blame. But Wilson's influence over Versailles basically created a lot of the situations that led to the rise of Hitler, which is the direct cause of World War II. So I honestly think without Wilson getting the U.S. involved in World War One, and without his influence over Versailles, you maybe don't see the rise of Hitler. You probably see World War One grind down to a stalemate, wherein all sides are forced to come to the table and none of them win decisively. And in that situation, Germany doesn't have the same sort of harsh terms placed upon it, and then you don't really have any impetus for the rise of Hitler, because the main reason for the rise of Hitler was the economic hardships enforced on Germany and the harsh diplomatic consequences for Germany being blamed at the end of World War One. You can't even really blame Hungary either. It was World War One was the result of every nation that participated. Or it was the fault of every nation that participated. I don't think there's any one country you can really blame for it. Yeah, basically, World War One was created. World War One happened, in my opinion. World War One, and yeah, Hitler might have been correct that the economic crisis was incoming, but I don't think things get desperate. Like, Germany was in tough economic straits before the Great Depression. The Great Depression just made everything worse. And that was when Hitler had his chance to seize power. But I think if you don't have the Treaty of Versailles and the harsh economic sanctions placed on Germany, you maybe don't see the rise of Hitler. They were. They were. But there were also a lot of Germans who were very angry over the territorial losses in particular. Remember, the ethnic map of Europe in 29 was very different from the ethnic map today. There were a lot of Germans left under the rule of Poles and Czechs and many other countries. A lot of Germans were left under the rule of other ethnicities, and going on the ideas of nationalism that had existed since the days of Napoleon. It's not that far a stretch to say that there was a belief that Hitler promised a lot of things, don't get me wrong, and most of them were horrible. Well, all of them were horrible, but a lot of Germans wanted to see ethnic Germans under one banner. Because with the depositions of the Habsburgs, a lot of the reasoning for an independent Austria went out the window. And the other thing is you're getting to consider that the French had basically occupied the Rhineland to make sure that Germany paid the debts that were forced upon it in the Treaty of Versailles. The Allies created the monster that was Hitler, I would argue. The actions of the Allies created him. Not literally. Oh yeah, if you just went on the doing good things for Germany part of it, but if you ignore a lot of at the start he wasn't as violent, but after he got power, things changed. That's why a lot of the world didn't do a whole lot when he came to power. Is at the start. Granted, the thing you gotta understand is the Allies didn't know that the Holocaust was happening until well into the war. So, to an outside observer, it seemed like all Hitler was doing was restoring Germany's economy and national pride. There was much more going on, but they didn't really know what was going on, with regards to the Holocaust until well into the war. And yet the thing about Nazi economics is it was as much a house of cards as most other economic programs. Like, pretty much all the economic growth was in war industry, because a lot of the jobs were in, building guns and planes and tanks that Germany would later use for conquest. It was. And yeah, every politician is like that. Hitler's just an extreme example. And every politician promises crazy bullshit to get people to vote for them. Stuff that no politician could ever actually make happen. I can see how someone who was in the... You gotta look at what the average German was experiencing during the Weimar Republic and during the economic crisis following 1929. The average German couldn't afford bread. He couldn't afford food for his kids. Prices were growing out of... Inflation in the Weimar Republic was ridiculous. Stuff like it would even put like modern Venezuela to shame. It was more economical to paper the walls with Deutschmarks than to actually use them as currency. So the average German was in a really tough situation, and anybody promising something better seemed good. So when Hitler shows up on the scene and promises to restore German power and economic greatness and military greatness, a lot of Germans like that idea. And then when he actually started creating jobs, granted, they were like they weren't like sustainable jobs. They were war industry jobs largely. After, like, the Autobahn is one thing. The war industry was far larger than the Autobahn, but he did improve a lot of the conditions for the average German worker. Now, don't mistake me for saying that Hitler did good things. What I'm saying is, conditions were so bad in Germany throughout the 1920s and 30s that to a lot of people, what Hitler offered was an improvement. And that's less a statement that anything the Nazis did was good and more a statement of just how dire the situation was in Weimar Germany. The Great Depression was bad. Weimar Germany, those people had it even worse than what Americans were dealing with during like the Dust Bowl years. Because at least the United States had a semi-functional economy going into the Great Depression. I am concerned about the inflation. Even though we've gone well away from like the gold standard and everything, you can't just print money like this without consequences. You okay, Gypsy? I heard you slip. When people get desperate, they start looking for extreme solutions, and that's where fascist and communist politicians really have their moment to gain traction. It never ends well. Always be wary of politicians promising utopia, because the thing about utopia is that it's always one corpse away. And that's the thing, you're always... Yeah, so there are two historical lessons I find that people actually get the hang of in high school. One of them is don't invade Russia in the winter. The other one is you can't print your way out of an economic crisis. But those are the two lessons that everybody seems to forget when the fucking cards are down. Because it didn't. Seeing what happened to Napoleon didn't stop Hitler from waging war on the Russians during winter. And everybody seemingly has tried to print their way out of an economic crisis, and it never works. I guess as a species we're slow learners, but still. Thing is, the bill eventually comes due. You can't do this infinitely. Eventually someone needs to pay for it, and it's probably not even gonna be the millennials at this point. It's probably gonna be the kids of the millennials. And yeah, that is fair, but it's like the whole like don't invade Russia in the winter meme. Where'd she go? Oh, there she is. Sorry, there's a dog right next to me. I can't not pet her. Everyone thinks that, and then they invade Russia, and then Russia doesn't fall. Oh, nice. I'm the steward of the HRE now. Oh, I can legally imprison this guy. Nice. Now I can revoke your title. Now everyone's always like, we'll get Russia this time, and then they don't get Russia this time. That is something else. That sounds fun. I might need to try that. Well, no, that would be a very interesting strategy. That said, I would say that China is largely more responsible for global warming at this point than the Americans are. Also, yeah, Russia, if Russia collapses, it'll be internally. And it very well might collapse within our lifetime, but the chaos that would emerge from that really makes me hope that I don't get to see it happen. Sort of like how I think China's going to bring about its own collapse, but it'll do a hell of a number on the rest of the world on its way out. That is true. I mean, pretty much every country in the developed world has a declining birth rate. The US only maintains population growth through immigration. Our birth rate is pretty low. And also, yeah, having a large enemy that we could all kind of rally against did do a number on us domestically, and it's kind of led to some splintering. Because at least the one thing we could all agree about in the 70s and 80s is fuck the Soviet Union, but we don't have a Soviet Union anymore, and the US is a very different country than it was. And trust me, as someone who lives here, I can see it. I've watched a lot of it happen. For like I live pretty much between Baltimore and DC, so I've been seeing a lot of it happen firsthand. Oh yeah, no. Eventually, it'll all shake out good. Pretty much every civilization has an idea of like the cycle of um of civilization. But what are you going to war with me over, you motherfucker? All right, time to hire some mercenaries. Usually, it all works out for the best in the long run. It's just the time between the collapse and things working out is pretty fucking brutal. Alright, let's see if I can get myself an ally real quick. Oh no, Russia's far from the worst regimes you're going to find in the modern world. I hope so. It's just, things ain't looking all that great for us at the moment. Putin's not great, but it does get worse than him. That's not a testament to Putin being good and more a testament to just how shitty a lot of the world is. No, no, I'm right there with you, Justinian. I am an American, and I very much do love this country, but I am about as anti-foreign intervention as an American gets. I'm more or less an isolationist in terms of foreign policy. I'm more than happy to leave the rest of the world alone as long as they leave us alone. That's kind of the operative theory behind a lot of my political beliefs. Hmm. Oh, we do have hereditary rule now. Oh, we don't, apparently. Oh no, that's the thing about Putin is he's not dumb. He is not dumb by any stretch of the imagination. That's what makes him scary. And yet, our first mistake was getting involved in Afghanistan. They don't call it the graveyard of empires for nothing. Granted, well, not prepping the regime for what happens when you die is kind of an operative theory for like an operative problem for every authoritarian government that's ever existed. I don't think Hitler had much of a plan for the Reich after he was gone. I would argue that America has, for the last century, been an empire. It's just a kind of a weird empire. That is true. Ideally, there would be no imperialism, and everyone could just fuck off and let other countries do what they wanted to do within their own borders, but I would also argue that of the imperialist powers that have existed, the US is more altruistic than most of them. I mean, if I was living under any given empire throughout history, I mean, what do you get? You get the maybe the British would be okay. Oh, I'm dead. Gotta fight my brother. Don't you just love partition succession? Like, I'm very against foreign intervention as far as American politics go, but I will also say that historically it does get a lot worse than the US. No, I'm not interested in buying followers. Alright, did I beat him? Alright. Time to go occupy Graz. The problem with that is that I need the title of... I need the title of Steiermark to form the Archduchy of Austria. Wait, what? When did the French... What the fuck? Alright, I need an ally. That is, yep, that makes sense. That is my own stupid fault then. But now I've got Poland, so that's fun. Alright. Poland's my friend now. Go to Krakow, because I'm oh, fuck. Oh, there it is. They saved me. Yeah. What a weird fucking war. A proxy war happening in Austria between the French and the Polish. Yeah, the whack-a-mole armies of CK3 are such a pain in the ass. Now, as an American, I'll tell you, Woodrow Wilson fucking blows. Don't know how he got elected twice. Oh, we have a faction. And also, that is true. Also, yeah, it would be nice if the AI actually knew when they were fucked. Let's see if I can get an alliance for my daughter, too, because I'm probably going to have to fight a civil war soon. County. Ideally, I could get a duke or something. Alright, that'll be useful. No, yeah, Wilson was hated even in his own time by a lot of people. It's a wonder to me that he got elected twice. No, fuck you. Hey, Poland, do you want to get in on this fucking war too? Alright, where's my other ally? And yeah, Woodrow Wilson's presidency is one of the most disastrous in all of history, basically. And that's the problem, is nobody remembers Wilson, but his getting us involved in World War I is the main reason we had a World War II. Without him, I see the war in Europe kind of grinding down to a stalemate, and you having a more equitable Treaty of Versailles. But Wilson really influenced the country into, and also that is true, his first lady was the one actually running the show during the latter part of his presidency, but his influence over Versailles created a lot of the conditions in Germany that would ultimately lead to the rise of Hitler. And yeah, Woodrow Wilson was completely mentally incompetent during his second term, so it was Mrs. Wilson who was actually in charge. I don't think the war in Europe would have gone on much longer, regardless of American intervention. All sides were tired of it at that point. Might have ground into the 20s, but it was gonna be coming to an end anyway. Come on, we're not done with this yet. Well, in all fairness, we did fuck around a lot in Latin American countries, and we did ruin a lot of them. I mean, the phrase banana republic was set up because of what we were up to in Latin America. We literally toppled governments to get cheaper bananas. Oh no, the communist government is entirely responsible for those protests. The communist government in Cuba fucking sucks, but the U.S. fucked a lot of Latin America sideways in the 19th and 20th centuries. All right, hire some mercenaries. Also, yeah, it did continue into the Cold War. I'm just more commenting on like it's silly to me that we fought wars over bananas. Like that is a thing that happened. We toppled governments for cheaper bananas. So we are responsible for a lot of the fuckery going on in Latin America. Also, yeah, no, don't get me wrong. The communist government in Cuba is fucking horrific. Fuck those guys. Also, yeah, Spain did their own fair share of fucking around in Latin America. Granted, that the whole reason Latin America exists in the first place, but hey, let's keep it civil in the chat. No reason to get at each other's throats. I am anti-imperialist on all fronts. I think countries should be free to do as they please in their own borders. Oh no, don't get me. Latin America bears some responsibility for what has happened to them, but the U.S. toppling all of their governments has certainly not helped the situation. It just seems like we are now constantly at war with everybody. Which is fine. It's fine. It's all fine. Go kill these guys. I did see that, and it's tragic. Alright, he's gone. Now time to deal with these dicks. It really depends, honestly. A tyrant like Saddam Hussein, can we really say that Iraq is better off without him? Some countries just don't have democracy in their DNA. It just won't work there. Trying to force it will only result in misery on all fronts. Now, if there's an actual genocide going on, then yeah, I would say that's reason to intervene. Like, I would say, ignoring the fucking shit show that would arise as a result of it, I think the US and NATO should get involved in China over the genocide of the Uyghurs, because that is an actual fucking genocide that's happening right before our eyes and we're ignoring it. The situation in Iran is completely fucked. Like, beyond belief. And if you ask me, we should not get involved in it more than we already have, because we've made things so much worse there just by getting involved to the degree that we have. Alright, and I should be able to take Graz back now. No, I can't, apparently. That's fine. Oh, she's all curled up on the bed. That is, the U.S. is generally better intentioned than most imperial powers throughout history. But that still doesn't really justify it. Also, yes, I am familiar with the Baha'is and what Iran is doing to them, and it is completely fucked. The thing you learn when you travel and when you study history is that a lot of the world kind of fucking blows for a lot of people, and has done for a very long period of time. Not always. Sometimes toppling one tyrant just opens the door to somebody worse than them. See the toppling of Saddam that ultimately led to the rise of ISIS, which was infinitely worse than Saddam Hussein ever was. So, the Baha'i faith is kind of an oddball. Um, it almost seeks to synthesize all the Abrahamic religions together. Yeah, Saddam did keep Al Qaeda in check, but also that is correct. Democracy just won't work everywhere. Some countries just don't have it in their sort of DNA as a nation to actually. And also, yeah, that is true. But the Baha'is are almost like modern pantheists, in my understanding. I'm no expert on them, but it's my understanding that they're almost like pantheists. Um, but no, democracy won't work everywhere. Some countries just have no history of it, and they have no desire for it. So trying to force democracy on them, it will just result in disaster. And if you get countries like Iraq, the part of the reason that democracy fell apart in Iraq is that it is divided along ethnic and religious lines. The Shias and the Sunnis would use the government to fuck over the other party. So it ultimately led to just a disintegration of the country and the rise of ISIS as a Sunni militia fighting against what they viewed as Shia oppression, which ultimately turned into, the fucking horrific nightmare that has been ISIS. That is interesting. And right, yeah, but you can't. George Washington was one of those people who shows up like once in a blue moon in history and changes it. But George Washington is rare. There aren't a whole lot of people like him. Also, yes, I'm not particularly well versed in Baha'i, but from what I have heard about it is that it seemed almost like a pantheistic belief system. I admit I haven't met many of them. the nearest Baha'i temple to me that I am aware of is in Washington, D.C. We don't have many of them in Baltimore, I'd imagine, but... At least I've never seen one. They very well might be there, but I've never seen one. We actually, a weird tidbit about Baltimore, we've got a fairly sizable Afghan population, or Afghani population. Actually, one of the former presidents of Afghanistan, his brother owns a kebab shop in downtown Baltimore, which I always thought was hilarious, just of all the weird connections to other country my city could have. Also, Manichaeanism is an interesting fucking religion. It's just, it kind of went extinct, but it's interesting nonetheless. I've gotten a little bit into it in this latest series because it had a serious influence in late Rome. That is true, but those people are really hard to find. They're exceedingly rare. Like, the reason George Washington is so revered by Americans, that he is a really weird figure historically in that he actually turned down power. In some countries, democracy just won't work. And in other countries, yeah, like, sometimes an autocratic government can be better and more effective than a democratic government. Like, sometimes with monarchies, you get an incredible ruler who in their lifetime is able to change the fortunes of an entire country. My main issue with monarchy is that it's a crapshoot. For every Frederick the Great or Charlemagne, you get a Caligula or a Nicholas II. It's a total crapshoot. You're good, dude. I'm actually gonna be ending this stream very soon. I've actually got other animals I need to take care of. So I think I'm gonna call it there. The saga of the von Babenbergs has involved a shitload of civil war, but we are very close to instituting primogeniture. So I think this is a good start to an Austria run, and hopefully once we've stabilized our own realm, we can run for election in the HRE and then establish the Archduchy. So have a great night, everybody. I will see you all tomorrow for the Sunday stream, where I'll be continuing my France run in EU4. So I'm Renegade Historian. Have a great night, everybody.